There is a massive industry built on telling you how to feel better. Buy this crystal. Download this meditation app. Repeat these affirmations every morning in the mirror. Burn sage in every corner of your house. And if none of that is working, maybe you just need to try harder, think more positively, or find a better crystal. Here's the thing nobody in that industry wants you to figure out. Most of the people selling you those tools are just as stuck as you are. And the reason they are stuck, the reason so many people who are genuinely trying to grow never seem to actually get there, is not because they are doing the wrong rituals. It is because they are completely avoiding the one thing that actually creates change. Carl Jung figured this out over a century ago. He spent decades studying human transformation, not the performance of transformation, not the feeling of transformation. Actual, measurable, real transformation. And what he discovered was both simple and brutal. You do not grow by adding things to your life. You grow by removing what is keeping you small. Today, I am going to walk you through 5 specific things that Jung identified as the heaviest anchors on human consciousness. These are not bad habits. They are not surface-level behaviors you can swap out with a better morning routine. These are deep psychological patterns that most people have built their entire identity around, and that is exactly what makes them so hard to release. Now, when I say release, I do not mean manage. I do not mean reduce. I mean let die entirely. Because Jung was very clear. You cannot carry low-frequency patterns and expect to operate at a high frequency. It does not work that way. You cannot put clean water into a contaminated tank and expect it to stay clean. Something has to go. So let us get into it. These are the 5 things you must fully surrender if you are serious about raising your consciousness. Not kind of serious. Not spiritually curious. Serious. The first thing, the need to be perceived as a good person. I want you to think about how much energy you spend every single day managing what other people think of you. You bite your tongue in a conversation because you do not want to come across as judgmental. You say yes to something you absolutely do not want to do because saying no feels selfish. You smile through situations that make you feel frustrated or disrespected because you do not want people to think you are difficult. You silence the parts of yourself that are inconvenient for others to witness. And you probably call this being a good person. Jung called it something else. He called it the persona. That is the mask you put on every single morning before you walk out the door. The version of yourself that has been carefully constructed to earn approval, avoid rejection, and make people comfortable enough to keep you around. And here is the hard truth Jung kept returning to in his work. The persona is not you. It is a performance. And performing goodness is one of the most exhausting, low-frequency ways a human being can move through the world. Think about what drives it. It is not actually love or integrity or genuine care for others. It is fear. Fear of being seen as bad. Fear of being rejected. Fear that if you stop performing, people will discover who you actually are and decide you are not worth keeping around. That fear, that constant background hum of needing to appear acceptable, keeps you vibrating at the frequency of survival. Not growth, not freedom. Survival. Jung studied people who had genuinely transformed, and what he noticed was that they had stopped trying to appear good and started being real. And real meant they could be warm and they could be firm, generous and boundaried, compassionate and honest, even when honesty was uncomfortable. People found this unsettling, because a person who has dropped the good persona cannot be controlled with guilt or shame. You cannot say to them, "What kind of person does that?" and watch them collapse. They already know exactly what kind of person they are, and they are not interested in your editorial. Now here is the part that makes this so difficult to actually do. For many people, being the good person is not just a social habit. It was a survival strategy developed in childhood. Maybe being good was how you kept the peace in a volatile household. Maybe performing kindness was how you earned love that should have been unconditional. Maybe being agreeable was how you made yourself small enough to stay safe. So when you start to release this pattern, it does not just feel uncomfortable. It feels like psychological annihilation, because the self you built around goodness has to die for something more authentic to take its place. Jung would tell you that you have actually released this need when you can disappoint someone and feel okay. Not great, not proud, just okay, stable, grounded in your own knowing without needing to chase them down and over-explain yourself until they forgive you. That stability is what higher consciousness actually feels like, not performance, groundedness. The second thing, the compulsion to fix, save, and heal everyone around you. If you are someone who identifies as empathetic, sensitive, a natural helper, I need you to sit with what I am about to say. Your desire to help people may not be as selfless as you think it is. Jung studied what he called the wounded healer archetype. These are people who are magnetically drawn to those who are suffering, who feel most alive when they are needed, who organize their schedules, their relationships, and their sense of purpose entirely around the act of helping others. And what Jung found, over and over again, was that this compulsion was almost never about the other person. It was about the helper. When your sense of value is built on being needed, you will unconsciously seek out people who need you. When your identity is rooted in being the one who holds everything together, you will surround yourself with people who are falling apart. And here is the darkest part of this pattern. When those people start to get better, start to become more capable and self-sufficient, you may unconsciously pull away from them or find new reasons they still need you. Because if they are okay, who are you? This is not compassion. This is codependency wearing compassion's clothing, and it operates at a very low frequency because it is entirely rooted in lack. I am not enough unless I am needed. My life has no meaning unless I am fixing something. I cannot stop helping long enough to sit with my own unresolved pain. And so the helping never stops, and neither does the low frequency. Jung observed that people who had genuinely evolved were able to offer support when it was asked for and appropriate, and step back when it was not. They did not feel compelled to jump in and rescue. They could watch someone struggle and trust that the struggle had a purpose. They understood the difference between being of service and being driven by a wound that has not been addressed. Releasing this pattern does not make you cold. I want to be very clear about that. It makes you discerning. It means you help from a place of fullness instead of from a place of need. It means your generosity has roots instead of being a compulsive behavior that runs on autopilot. But giving up the helper identity is genuinely painful, because if you are not the person everyone leans on, you have to face the question of who you actually are without that role. And that question can feel terrifying when your whole sense of self has been structured around being useful to other people. Jung would say, you have released this when you can hear someone describe a problem and respond with genuine presence without immediately producing a list of solutions. When you can let someone sit in their difficulty without making it your emergency. When you can say, that sounds really hard, and mean it without following it with an offer to fix it. That is care without control. And it vibrates much higher than the rescuing ever did. The third thing, the attachment to being understood. How many conversations have you had where you spent 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to make someone understand why you felt a certain way or made a certain choice? You explained it one way, and they did not get it. So you tried another angle. Still nothing. So you rephrased it again, hoping that this time, the right combination of words would finally make them see. And when it still did not work, you walked away feeling invisible, dismissed, alone inside your own experience. Jung identified this pattern as one of the most subtle and most destructive forces, keeping people stuck at lower levels of consciousness. And the reason it is so destructive is because of what it reveals about your relationship with yourself. If you need other people to understand you in order to feel valid, you have not yet developed what Jung called internal authority. You are still outsourcing your sense of reality to other people's ability to comprehend it. Let me say that again, because it is worth sitting with. You are outsourcing your sense of reality to other people's ability to comprehend it. That means your inner experience only feels real, only feels legitimate when someone else confirms it. And that is a deeply unstable foundation to build a life on, because most people, even the ones who love you, do not have access to your inner world. They have never lived inside your body. They have never seen the world through your specific history and your specific perception. They literally cannot fully understand you, and waiting for them to do so before you feel grounded in your own experience means you will be waiting for a very long time. What Jung found in people who operated at genuinely elevated levels of consciousness was that they had a different relationship with being understood. They would share their experience when it felt right, and when the other person was capable of receiving it. But they did not need that person to get it in order to feel solid. They knew what they knew. They felt what they felt. And that did not change based on whether anyone around them could follow. This is not arrogance, and it is not isolation. It is self-trust. Releasing the need to be understood requires you to build a relationship with your own inner knowing that is strong enough to stand without external confirmation. And that is uncomfortable work, especially if you were raised in an environment where your perceptions were regularly dismissed, minimized, or contradicted. Jung warned that this release comes with a cost. When you stop explaining yourself and stop chasing understanding, some relationships will dissolve. People who were used to you performing and justifying and over-explaining will not know what to do with your quiet confidence. They may accuse you of being cold or closed off. What is actually happening is that you are creating space for a different kind of connection. One where you do not have to earn your right to exist in every conversation. You will know you have released this when someone fundamentally misunderstands you, and you feel sad, maybe, but not destabilized. When you can be completely unseen in an interaction and walk away without needing to go back and try again. When your inner world feels real and valid, regardless of whether anyone else can access it. That is self-trust. And self-trust is a high-frequency state. The fourth thing, the fantasy of who someone could become. This one is going to land hard for a lot of people. You have someone in your life, maybe a parent, maybe a partner, maybe a close friend, and they consistently let you down, hurt you, disappoint you, or fall short in ways that matter to you. But you stay, or you keep trying, or you keep the door open, because you can see who they could be. You can see the version of them that has done the healing work, the version that has confronted their patterns and made different choices, the version that finally shows up the way you need them to. And you keep relating to that version instead of the actual human being standing in front of you. Jung called this projection, and he was emphatic that it is one of the most powerful forces keeping people trapped in painful, repetitive dynamics. Here is the crucial thing Jung understood. When you see potential in someone and relate to that potential, instead of who they actually are right now, you are not actually seeing them. You are seeing something you have placed onto them. A story you need to be true, a version of them you need to exist. Because the alternative, accepting who they actually are, would require you to make decisions you are not ready to make. Maybe you need them to be safe, so you can stop feeling anxious. Maybe you need them to change, so you do not have to face how much energy you have poured into this relationship. Maybe you need them to become who they could be, because losing the hope of that would feel like losing everything. Whatever the need is, it belongs to you, not to them. Jung found that people who had genuinely elevated their consciousness had learned to see people with clear eyes, not cynically, not without hope, but clearly. They could observe someone's behavior, take it seriously, and make decisions based on what was actually present rather than what they were hoping would eventually materialize. This does not mean people cannot change. They can, but they change on their own timeline, for their own reasons, when they are ready. And you do not have the ability to want it into existence on their behalf. Releasing the fantasy of who someone could become requires grief, real grief. Because you are not just letting go of a hope, you are letting go of a person who does not actually exist. A version of someone you have loved, maybe for years, who was never really there. Jung said this grief was non-negotiable. You cannot skip it. You have to actually mourn the person you thought they could be before you can see the person they are. And once you can see them clearly, you can make a real decision. Not a decision based on potential or possibility or hope, a decision based on current reality. Is this person, as they are right now, someone who belongs in my life? That is the only question that matters. You will know you have released this when you can watch someone show you exactly who they are and believe them. When you can stop overlaying the story of their potential onto every interaction. When you can make choices about your relationships based on what is actually there, not what you wish were there. That is clarity, and it is one of the most liberating frequencies a person can operate from. The fifth thing, the identity of being wounded. This is the hardest one, and I want to approach it with real care. If you have been through trauma, and most of us have in some form, acknowledging that matters. Feeling the pain of what you went through matters. Understanding how those experiences shape the way you move through the world matters. Jung did not question any of that. What he did question was what happens when the wound becomes the center of your identity, when the story of what happened to you becomes the most important story you tell. When your trauma history becomes your primary introduction to new people, your main framework for understanding yourself, and the lens through which you interpret every new experience. Because that is a fundamentally different thing from healing. Jung observed that many people who had done years of therapeutic work, who could articulate their wounds with great precision and depth, had never actually moved past the stage of identification with those wounds. They understood their trauma, but they were still organizing their entire existence around it. They made choices through the filter of their wound. They formed relationships through the filter of their wound. They interpreted the world, other people's intentions, their own limitations, all through the filter of what was done to them. And Jung was direct about what frequency that operates at. It is the frequency of victim consciousness, not victim in any kind of shaming sense, but victim as an orientation that says, what was done to me determines what is possible for me. What happened back then shapes who I am today and who I will be tomorrow. He also noticed something that took real courage to say out loud. Many people unconsciously resist moving beyond the wounded identity because there are real benefits to holding it. People treat you more gently. Your struggles make sense. You belong to a community. You have an explanation for why things are hard. And you do not have to take full responsibility for who you are becoming, because you can always point to what you went through. None of that is malicious. It is human. But it keeps people stuck. Releasing the wounded identity does not mean pretending the harm did not happen. It does not mean minimizing what you went through, or performing toughness, or deciding that your pain was not real or significant. It means integrating those experiences rather than centering them. It means becoming someone who carries what happened without being defined by it, someone who has scars but is not organized around those scars. It means the question shifts from why am I this way, because of what happened, to who am I becoming in spite of it, or even better, through it. That shift in orientation, from past harm to present becoming, is one of the highest frequencies a human consciousness can reach, because it requires you to claim authorship of your own life even when you have very legitimate reasons not to. You will know you have released this when your trauma history is not the first thing you share with someone new, when you can talk about your past without it being the most interesting or most defining thing about you, when your wounds are part of your story but not the headline. That is integration, and it is powerful. You have probably noticed something running through all 5 of these things. Each one is an identity, a self you built, often for very good reasons, often as a genuine response to a real situation, the good person, the helper, the one who needs to be understood, the one who sees potential in people, the one who was wounded. And each identity, however it got built, is now a weight, a pattern that made sense at some point, but is actively preventing you from accessing a higher level of consciousness now. Jung's core insight was this: transformation is not additive. You do not add enough positive thinking or meditation or spiritual practices on top of these patterns and eventually override them. The patterns are too heavy for that. They will absorb whatever you add and continue running underneath it. The only thing that actually works is subtraction, release, the willingness to let those identities die. And he was honest that this feels like dying, because parts of you that have existed for years or decades do have to end. You grieve them. You feel disoriented without them. There is a period, sometimes a long one, where the old self is gone and the new one has not yet fully formed. Jung called this the void, and he said it was not a sign that something had gone wrong. It was a sign that something real was happening, because real transformation does not happen in the comfortable, well-lit spaces. It happens in the transition, in the darkness between who you were and who you are becoming. What emerges on the other side of those 5 releases is not a polished, perfect, spiritually elevated version of yourself. It is something more real than that. It is someone who acts from authenticity instead of approval seeking, who offers care from fullness instead of need, who trusts their own knowing without requiring consensus, who sees reality clearly and makes decisions from that clarity, who moves through the world as a person who had experiences rather than a person who is their experiences. That is what raising your consciousness actually looks like. Not crystals and sage, though there is nothing wrong with those, not affirmations and meditation apps, though they can support the process, but the hard, honest, grieving work of releasing the patterns that have kept you anchored to a version of yourself that no longer serves you. Jung's message was not comfortable. It was not designed to be. He was not interested in making transformation feel easy. He was interested in helping people actually do it. And his message was simple. If you want to vibrate higher, stop trying to add things and start letting things go. The 5 things we talked about today: performed goodness, compulsive helping, the need to be understood, projection of potential, the wounded identity. These are the weights. Release them. Grieve what you lose in the releasing. And discover, in that space of genuine surrender, who you actually are when you are not carrying them anymore. That is the path. It is not easy, but it is real. And real transformation, the kind that actually sticks, the kind that actually changes the frequency you operate at every single day, that is what we are here for.